Well, welcome once again to the L&D Ninja podcast. I am your host, Great Resignation, and I am so glad you're here with us. My guest is, well, you're gonna see. I'm not gonna say much about him. He is quite a forceful voice for creativity, for marketing, for sales. He's the former chief marketing officer for TracFone Wireless, and that's how I got to meet him. He was one of the executives there, a pioneer in the space. He really lifted TracFone Wireless from being a mom and pop shop to the point where it actually was just acquired by Verizon Wireless. So Rob Dandrea, my guest, he had a lot to do with that, and I am so glad that he took time out of his busy schedule to be here with us and impart his knowledge and his wisdom and his know-how. And today's topic is I think is very important, entitled "You Inc." So welcome to the podcast, Rob. I am so glad you are here with me today.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure, and I'm honored and humbled to be here serving. Really exciting topic today about You Incorporated. So,
yeah, who would have thunk it that when you first started thinking about this so many years ago, that today is really a reality. I mean, social media has become a sort of You Inc., a self-branding mechanism, right, and tool. And so you've been talking about this for many years now.
For a long time. It's always been relevant. I actually took, per se, a course in You Incorporated back over 40 years ago. And that's what, put my wheels in motion to realize my dreams, because we all have our dreams. Yeah. And how do we lead a fulfilling life? And how do we accomplish what we want to accomplish? And how do we push and persevere and become a learn-it-all, not a know-it-all as well? And so in today's world, as we understand with social media and all of the distractions and the new way of working, and this was relevant pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
And now, so even post-pandemic, was something we call future compression, where everything that we looked to be happening over the next 10 years is happening now with work from remote and virtual reality. And to your point, how we brand ourselves on, I say on social media, but we're going to talk more about that in a minute.
Yeah. So, Rob, tell the audience a little bit about your journey, how you got interested in marketing and sales, and really how because you've had a very successful career in the space. I mean, so much so that you now are a mentor for students who are learning business and marketing and sales right now. You're a mentor. So tell us about your journey and how you got bit by the marketing and sales bug.
Yeah, let me share with you going way back. I did not come to the United States until I was 10 years old. And I lived in Africa, Trinidad, Puerto Rico, and Singapore. And when I came to this country, I did not know what basketball, football, McDonald's, the Beatles, sex, drugs, and rock and roll were. I'd never seen a school gymnasium. I'd never been in a formal school. I had been in reconverted houses with the British uniform. And so quite candidly, I had a lot of, I was picked on, I was bullied, and I had a lot of low self-esteem. And so it was frustrating, because at the same time, I wanted to realize my dreams. And how was I going to do that? I actually did an exercise where I visualized myself looking back on my own life as though I was 90 or 100, literally on my deathbed. And what regrets would I have? And they say, don't regret, what you did, regret what you didn't do.
Right.
I couldn't ask a girl out for a date. And I told myself, I'd rather go to my deathbed knowing she said no. Then I know the answer. I can live in peace. I didn't have a chance with her, okay? I didn't have a chance. Now I know. And so I did that exercise to start to learn to accept the rejections and value that, and to understand, you got to go through some of those pains. So, long story short, flywheel a little ahead. I went to Rochester Institute of Technology. I put myself there on purpose out of Miami so I could clean myself up. It was the 70s back then. And, I got into business, and I got into sales and marketing. And, it's not easy when you're out of college, and not everyone shows you all the bird seeds of what you need. And I don't know I totally understood that I was a corporation myself, that I was Rob Dandrea Inc., and that I needed to have marketable assets. And those marketable assets range, first in core subject matters about something of interest to you, whether it's business or social media or engineering or photography, but also in knowing how to have a great hobbies and cooks and have a balanced wheel and health and religion and exercise and communication and public speaking. And I wanted to have a list of braggables, as I call them. What are our braggables? And, as you come to go through that. And so I went to Success Motivation Institute and I took the whole U Inc. And that set me with, we all need a process.
Yeah.
We need a process. So I came out of there learning about goal setting, a deadline for attainment, how to dream and imagine again. And that set me off on my first business venture and then another business venture. Some failed, but I call those learnings.
Of course.
I went to hospitality for 20 years. Amazing. It wasn't always easy. And then I was fortunate enough to meet the founder of TracFone Wireless when we had nothing. And we grew the corporation, led teams that grew the corporation from zero to over $8 billion in revenue.
Yeah, that's impressive. That's impressive. And you've shared with me those early days, Rob, as to how you guys accomplished all of that, because it was a very new startup. The technology was just, cell phone technology was just coming into the mainstream. And you and the rest of the team there really brought it to life. What can you share with the audience what the vision was for TracFone Wireless in the communication space?
Yeah, the vision was we thought we had a great technology solution where we put the debit and credit solution technology into a phone, like an ATM machine in a phone. You enter money into the phone by way of a code that you prepaid the money for, and you had so many units of airtime, and the units would get deducted from your little meter on your phone when you hit send to talk, and it would stop deducting the taxi meter when you hit end. And so we were going to sell this technology to the carriers. There were 72 carriers back then. Nobody wanted us. Everyone hated us. Okay. It was another one of those go home and cry at night that I cannot believe this business is not going to take off and it's a failure. Okay.
Yeah.
And you learn to pivot and tilt. And it's always about personally and professionally pivot and tilting.
Yeah.
Being able to make those changes necessary. And so the pivot and tilt we made was we said, well, let's go sign the contracts ourselves with the carriers. And we'll go resell the phone ourselves, since not one carrier wants to buy our product and resell it for all the turndowns they have, which is 40% of everyone that applies gets turned down for a contract phone. Absurd. We believe cell phone was a right, not a privilege. And so we stuck it in a box. We made it a phone to go. We branded it. We went where wireless wasn't. 7-Eleven, Circuit City, Radio Shack, food stores. We ended up putting it in 90,000 grocery stores. All sorts of points of distribution where people could find out for the first times in their life that they could have a cell phone. Yeah. And so we were the first company at TracFone to put a phone in a box, phone to go with no contract. But it's a lot like fishing pictures. It always looks easy when you look at the picture, but you kind of miss all the stuff that happened in order to catch that fish.
Well, I've heard the stories.
I think that's what's important also for everyone to really have to embrace. Susan David is great at this with emotional agility, that discomfort is the price of admission to leading a fulfilling life.
Absolutely, 100%.
And if you don't want that, then those are called dead man's goals. And I used to say we'll have millions of years after we pass to look back on our life saying, why was I worried about that one item? Why didn't I push through it? Why didn't I realize more of me? Why didn't I overcome fears? Why didn't I dream more? What was I afraid of? And to really appreciate just how much learning goes into it. And with your new business, which is so exciting, I think your product is amazing because
Thank
it's
you.
it's 360. I love how it's bringing in the social media piece of that, where persons can interact with each other and have the
Yeah.
peer to peer. And but you had some sleepless nights.
I still do, Rob. I still do.
But I always used to read Man in the Arena by Theodore Roosevelt, knowing that at least I know what success and failure is, and I know I'm realizing my potential. And it just makes the reward so much sweeter. I
Yeah.
can tell you that for a fact. And it's much sweeter than being on the sour side of it because we all get a taste of those sour sides.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So,
Absolutely. Let me ask you something, Rob, because you guys had to pivot as you said. Um, and the technology, the phones were not perfect, right? I mean, the technology I mean, you've told me those stories, right? But you guys still did it, and you sort of improved along the way, right? I mean,
you
because
have to.
you have to,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. You have to have progress, not perfection.
Yeah, yeah,
Because to get to perfection is you learn through the progress.
yeah.
And learning is everything, whether it's learning subjects, learning customer centricity, learning design, learning what's working and what's not. So absolutely. Most of what we shipped didn't work. Okay. Just a fact. I mean, it was so painful that we knew that any account we got, we weren't going to get a reorder. We would have to get a new account in order to make payroll.
Oof.
Okay. It was
Yeah.
tough. We were plugging the software in with a Radio Shack cable and a meter. And I think Radio Shack called it the activation hit rate, which is right now we're getting one to activate out of every six we sell.
Oh,
Okay. So, fortunately, Uniden came along and agreed to put the software inside the phone, and that helped remove all those bugs. But we successfully lost $200 million a year for 3 years trying to learn. There was no blueprint for this. Think about this.
yeah,
The
yeah.
average phone bill was like $100. So we figured, okay, well, someone's going to prepay for their phone bill, so we should get the same $100, right? Not understanding, not having asked the customer what is their behavior.
Yeah.
And we didn't know that a prepaid customer was only going to spend $20 a month. So we built a financial model on 100 a month and only getting 20, giving away margins and commissions that would just put us out
Mm.
of business fast. Have to go back and renegotiate the contracts. Uh, it was painful. It looks easy now looking back on it, and that's no different than any other startup,
Yeah.
you
No.
know.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And by the way, each one of us as a company, we're all in different phases. The audience that we're talking to, you could be just out of college, you could be a manager, you could be a senior executive, but you're still a company that has to learn and develop. I always said if I'm going to write a book, the title would be I Wish I Had Started My Career How I Ended It, because I learned more in the last 4 years about learning and development and being
Hmm.
a servant leader,
Hmm.
and how it doesn't matter how old you are or where you are in any stage of your life, that you still have to learn and develop,
Yeah.
or you will. I think it was Clint Eastwood that said, if you don't stay active, our creator comes back and takes his
Hmm.
parts back. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, Rob, that's something that I always appreciate about you because I mean, you were maybe the third person in the company, I mean, if not the second at times. But your humility, I mean, I remember when I joined the company, I was a nobody. I was just a corporate trainer. And you embraced me and poured into my life. And you were, I mean, with humility and care and compassion, and that's how I grew to really appreciate you as a person, not as an executive. I mean, that was obvious because when I got there, the company was already made, right? I think when I joined the company, there was like 25 million subscribers already.
Right.
You guys have made it, but you always took the time. Not only, I mean, and I saw it with myself, but you did it with your team. People respected you and your team. They looked up to you because of the kind of person you were, and that's something that I think leaders can learn, right? To
Yeah, it's so
really
true.
don't think so highly of yourself, pour into the lives of other people. And I see you doing that, especially now more than ever, because now you have
Yeah, I
a
don't
little bit
have.
more time.
Yeah, exactly. I tell leaders all the time to uh, to take the anvils off your shoulders. And I always told my team, it's much easier to work if you all do the work. I
Yeah.
really just want to be on the sofa doing nothing. Okay. I'm here to help serve you with helping you with your strategy, helping support you with tools and resources. But it's much easier to lead. A lot of my first years in learning to be a manager or going from, I tell people in your career path, you go from a way of working to a way of thinking to a way of leading.
Hmm.
And the majority of my years was very tops down management, if you will. And quite frankly, I learned because we did this at TracFone when we flipped the pyramid upside down and turned over the business to 800 of the employees
Yes.
to help us develop the strategy from the bottom up, to do all of the running the business units. And we were here to serve them. It was a big change for me as an executive to undo the subconscious biases I had of
Hmm.
persons and work and the management style. And even with, inclusion and equity. And so the easiest way to, thank goodness I had it in my DNA just to say, let her fly, baby, let her fly. But it's much easier to just have that humility
Yeah.
and allow everyone else to do that work. And that was part of my U Inc. My U Inc. is I wanted to develop myself to be as good of a leader as I could possibly be.
Hmm.
And the standard was me against me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
And
just
rightfully so.
tremendous. And we talk about learning and development. That became a big part. It became a big part of listening to the employees, respecting those employee opinion surveys, getting back to them. We actually even appointed employees to put together their own employee blocker teams, we called them, to help look and research best in class and what should we do and what was the context behind the input to these persons so we could learn and develop. So it's
Yeah.
just not a bunch of persons up at the top looking at the employee opinion survey and
Yeah.
thinking we understand the context behind it and what they need.
Well, and I remember it was taken a step further too. When I used to teach, focus on excellence there, and
All
the
right.
second part of that class was not only teaching people principles of leadership and management, but they had to be broken up into smaller groups and come up with an idea to either a product to sell, an improvement to make in the company, something to do with the. I mean, it was and you and the rest of the leaders really judged. I mean, you were that was Shark Tank before Shark Tank, right?
It was. We judged and we were learning how to lead that, and we had to, you know, create a safe space.
Yes.
And we had to enable them to be comfortable to reach out to other departments and
Yes.
to start to use more of the collaboration that we were breaking down silos and improving the collaboration. And at the end of the day, you do have a more enjoyable work environment,
Absolutely.
personal life. We should be, there's nothing wrong with being happy, and it's okay to be happy at work. And at the same time, to understand that failure and success are not opposite ends of the plane; they're on the same continuum going
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah.
And with the proper processes, your personal life and your professional life can embrace those together, so long as you're being self-aware,
Yeah.
you're recognizing it, you're asking, "What did I learn from that? How do I take the emotions and use that as data, have a meeting with it for 2 minutes, thank them for that data they're providing me." And also importantly is to not be the victim. So many of us, play the victim.
Yeah.
And I think the most important lens, which can help you navigate everything, is the changing that perspective into what can I do differently
Mm.
to change the outcome. What
Yeah.
can I do? Maybe I shouldn't have asked the question of finance in front of 30 persons in the meeting. Maybe I should meet with the person privately and individually and ask them about their concerns about the project.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Instead of just pointing fingers.
Yeah. Well, it brings a new dimension of, I think, accountability, right? And teamwork, right? So there's the individuality of the of the reality that you're working on, but it also brings people, I think, closer together, right? As a team.
It
And
does.
that's usually, I mean, that's what makes or breaks companies, right? Is are we working as a cohesive unit? And it's not perfect, right? I mean, we're gonna have disagreements and fights and the likes,
Sure.
but are we working cohesively as a unit to reach, to reach our company goals, right?
Yeah.
And even ask the questions, are those the right goals, right?
It's true. And that's a good point right there. And I think it's important. We all like a process. And so I think part of the pillars to that process is making sure everyone's aligned about the purpose we all have, that we work together with our values, with respect and that collaboration, creating those safe spaces and having things like retrospectives, like, hey, is it the right strategy? Do we need
Yeah,
to change prioritization? And let's just all meet together and ask some very simple questions. What's working? What's not working? What should we start doing? What should we stop doing?
yeah,
And let's do this every 3 months because things are always changing.
yeah,
And if we're all on the same page, then we're not shooting bows and arrows, across from each other. And that's imperative to just having that healthy environment, is understanding that. And I think I recall Timothy Cromier from TracFone was one of your podcasts, and
yeah.
he was like, we need more leaders, we need more leaders, we need more leaders. And as I was listening to that, I take that each and every one of us is a leader
Absolutely.
of something, even if it's ourselves in our own way.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so
that's the first. I mean, leading oneself is probably the starting point,
it's a
right?
huge starting point.
Yeah.
I gave a little pitch up on stage one time that for all these years, everyone says there's no I in team, there's no I in team, there's no I in team. And I got to thinking about that, and I came to realize there is an I in team. The
Oh.
I in a team is a part of what will make that team. It's what
Hmm.
I can do differently. It's how I communicate. It's how I collaborate. It's how I hold accountability to each other.
Yeah.
It's everything that I do to participate and how I don't be the victim. So for me, a team is a component of I's,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm reform I'm pivoting on, there is an I in team. I make a difference on that team, and how can I do it? How we work with each other, how I create a safe space,
Yeah.
how I participate, and everything else that comes with being a part of that team.
Yeah. That's probably a nuanced way of saying, Michael Jordan used to say there's no I in team, but there's I in win.
Right? Yeah, that's right. Okay, that's
Right?
right. You're right.
Right. And so in winning doesn't mean listen, I'm a big
I
Michael
love
Jordan
that. I
fan.
love that.
Yeah. But sometimes winning doesn't mean that you see success right away. Obviously, from your story and the story of TracFone, you didn't see it right away. It took years of, plugging away and pivoting and fixing things, but you did see some major wins as a result with time.
We
Um,
did. But I think it's important, though, is what you always have to see is that vision or that
yeah,
purpose. So we never lost sight of the vision that a lot of persons could not have a cell phone in this country. And we were going to be the ones to champion them having that ability to have them come hell or high water.
yeah,
And that's things we have to do in our personal life and our career. It's one thing to say, I want to be a vice president, but it's another thing to say, what steps do I need to do to get there? We talk about SMART goals, right?
yeah,
Specific, measurable, attainable. And how do I share that with my boss, that here's where I see myself in 5 years, and please communicate with me. What things do you think I need to do to help me get there? It's a
Yeah.
conversation most of us don't have. We
No.
spend more time planning our New Year's Eve than we do our own lives, you know? We're
Right.
so afraid of performance reviews, and performance reviews should really be spun into professional development. It's all
Absolutely.
about professional development. It's about driving this through the windshield and being proactive about it and writing these goals down so that, the mind doesn't really know the difference between fact or fiction.
Yeah.
It just
Yeah.
knows what we tell it.
Yeah.
If you tell it, clean the garage this weekend, it'll be done by late Sunday night. But if you tell it, clean the garage by 12 o'clock on Saturday noon, it's done by then.
Right.
It's going to do what you program it to do.
Yeah.
And so you have to be able to do that with yourself. Share it with your family. A lot of times the family friction is because no one shared that you wanted to become ride horses, or you wanted to become a VP, and that you were gonna make investments in various courses and developments and outside
And
trainings, and you were
time.
gonna get your masters, you were gonna get your doctorates, right?
Yeah.
And you wanted to write a book, and you have to share these things. People say, "Oh, I'm telling you." No, tell people, make those
Yeah.
commitments, and ask them, what things do you think you need to do to help you get there, and
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
after it with unwavering commitment.
Well, and that's a very good point there, Rob. I mean, a lot of people, I think, they create lofty goals and they have lofty dreams, but until you have to tell yourself, but then you have to execute, right? And you have to execute on a daily basis. You have to execute not on the big things, but the little things, right? That are gonna add up to bigger things that will get you closer to your goal.
Per Exactly, well stated. Little things that will lead to big things. And as I always tell my family and my kids, someone has to do the doing part.
Yeah.
And guess who that person is? It's you. It's you. Okay. Period. End of story. Here's the good news. You're the captain of your ship, as the book would say.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't drive it. Do not settle for a minimum diet of effort. And do not settle for all those that want you to stay in the same canoe with them, because a lot of people
Yeah.
don't like it when you leave the canoe and
Yeah.
advance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
hate to say it, right?
Yeah.
More persons like to have what I call happy hour talk and coffee talk. Yeah, and another thing. And then I told him, can you believe that? I love a good Ain't It Awful session. Boy, today's Ain't It Awful session was just fantastic, wasn't it? We really beat up on, I think, on everything last night, Reggie, right? Really pretty good. Now I got to go back to work, and I haven't
Yeah.
done a dang thing for me to do something.
So what
So
did you call
get
it?
rid of that.
Interawful?
Ain't it awful? Yeah. Ain't it
Ain't
awful
it, ain't
sessions.
it awful?
And when I hear ain't it awful sessions, I'm like, guys, girl, this ain't for me.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd
Yeah.
always ask them when they're saying, ain't it awful? Ain't it awful? So let me ask you, what are you going to do differently? What are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
No one's asked me that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stop it. Go after your dreams, go after, free up your imagination, write these things down. You can't manage what you can't measure, and go after it.
Yeah. Rob, a lot of our audience are, I guess people like myself, right? Budding entrepreneurs, we're just probably getting started this, or people shifting or considering shifting careers, right? I mean, we reach out to a lot of teachers who are probably disenchanted with the classroom, and they still want to stay in education, and they're making the jump to corporate training. What are some? I mean, based on in your philosophy of You Inc. What are some things that we can do, right, as budding entrepreneurs or new in this space, to start making progress in the lives that we have set for ourselves?
That's a great question. I think it's good to go and ask persons that are in or associated with what you want to be, what they think you need to do, and
Mm,
ask them for advice. And I think, just as I did with TracFone, I took a huge pay cut. I started a TracFone with nothing. I just wanted to get on the bus.
hmm.
And I think it's important, it's not always fun. I had to bring a little brown lunch bag every day, but you have to go and ask those persons, if you're a teacher trying to, learning and development is so paramount today.
Yeah.
So you have, what do they call that? Skills that are transferable skill sets, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, and start with anything you can get into. I remember when I was being interviewed at TracFone, the question to me was, do you have any wireless experience? And I said, no, none at all. And my whole resume was food. I was in the food industry for 20 years. And, the founder said, well, I'm not going to be able to use you. And I
Mm.
was frustrated listening to rejection after rejection after rejection because I didn't have the experience in that specific field. I paraphrased the question back to, let me ask you, you have a lot of experience in that? Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, it's all I've done my whole life is wireless and telecommunications. I said, so is that all you're able to do is to take what you know in operations, marketing, finance, leading, management, and you don't feel as though you could apply that to any other product or service in the world?
Good point.
And I said, you know what? Oh, I'm being rude now. Let me rephrase the question. How long, where can I go, I said, to learn enough about a cell phone that I can repeat the attributes of that product to the person to my right to get them to buy it from me? Okay. And the founder looked at me and said, can you be here in the morning? And so I think it's really about looking at, it's not that I'm a teacher or I'm this or I'm that. You really have to put yourself on a piece of paper,
Yeah.
and have a professional resume writer pluck you, because sometimes we're too humble. Okay.
Yeah.
I did that when I left TracFone. I wanted to memorialize my whole career. I actually used, I shouldn't put a plug in. I think it was Robin Story of Story Resumes. But when you think about what you are as a teacher, it's sort of like being a stay-at-home mom. Look at the transferable skills. You are CEO mom, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, what do I have in planning? I have to plan lessons. I have to public speak. I have to lead and manage individual personalities.
Yeah.
And you have to help the person with whom you're speaking about where you want to get into. You have to help them with their paradigm because they're looking for someone. If you're a corporate and you're looking for trainers and developers, you're looking for someone that can plan lessons.
Absolutely.
You're looking for someone that can hold a lesson. You're looking for someone that can understand the different personalities, how to read a room. And that's what you're selling. You're not selling, I'm a teacher, I'm a chemist, I'm a photographer. You're selling everything that's behind that.
And here's a good point that you told me a long time ago, or I don't know if it was you or somebody, was telling me your story, that when you got that initial rejection, you actually showed up the next day, you rolled up your sleeves, they needed help with something, and you started helping them and working, even though you were not an employee. So,
Yeah.
so is there?
That is true, and I've done that before. I have absolutely done that before. I've given companies a piece of my startup company, whether they liked it or not, and signed over ownership. And like, oh, geez, I can't believe you just signed over a piece of your company. I'm like, let's get going. But
Yeah.
that's what it's about, And in that vein, I tell everyone, don't wait to be asked. You
Good
know,
point.
you know, raise my right hand all the time. Put me in. Let me pack boxes all day. I just want to be doing the doing. Okay.
Right. Right.
And small differences make a big difference. In the restaurant business, I used to teach my service staff, if you want to double your tips, it doesn't take big things. It just takes small things, right? If you see an empty pack of cigarettes on the dining room table, don't ask a stupid question like, are you out of cigarettes? Or do you need cigarettes? Just kindly remove the trash, take $5 out of your pocket, go buy the man a pack of cigarettes, put it on a plate without him asking, and you're going to
Yeah.
get a 10 back on that 5 you just spent.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
what it is in life. I find, one of my frustrations is I find not enough of us put ourselves out.
Yeah.
Put yourselves out, and you don't always have to get credit for it. All these food dishes, you go to the community and everybody, we're going to do a potluck dinner, and then you got to put a name tag in front of the meal. And my wife always goes, how come you never put a name tag in front of our meal? I said, because I don't need credit for green
Yeah.
beans.
Yeah.
mundane. Why does someone have to get credit for it, right? Just bring the food and put it on the table. The caliber of who you really are is what you do when people aren't looking.
That's
Okay.
it. That's
You
yeah. That's
know,
character. Yeah.
and that's character. And when
Yeah.
we talk, that brings us to that social media, not to make a leap. When I public speak in front of these young adults, I get this question: how do you brand yourself on social media?
Yeah.
Whoa, let's go back a moment. A brand is a product. That's what a brand is.
Yeah.
Marketing is just telling somebody, the product actually tells you what it is, and you're just informing persons. So if you want a brand on social media, first and foremost, grow your values,
Yeah.
grow
Your
your
product.
ethics, grow your learning and development, become a subject matter expertise. Don't make your identity all virtual. There's not enough substance there. And
Yeah.
then when you're on social media, now you've got something to talk about and make an impact. And you just don't say, oh yeah, I really liked your comments. Say, I really enjoyed the impact you're making, and I wish get into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hate to say it, but just taking pictures of where you're at and what you're doing, you got to do a lot more than that. But it
Yeah.
starts with you Inc.,
Yeah.
your braggables, your corporation, your subject matter expertise, your soft skills expertise,
Yeah.
all of that, speaking.
And what I tell people with regards to that is number one, be inquisitive. Always, be on the lookout to learn something new. Take risks, right? Put yourself out there because there's no way of knowing, right? If something's going to work or not, or if you're going to like it or not, or if you're going to be good at it or not, right off the
Yeah.
bat, right? You have
You'll at
to,
least learn whether or not you like it.
yeah, yeah, at least, right? And so you're absolutely right. And I think that's, the newer generation, and I'm going to put my generation in that too. I mean, we want some like instant gratification. We want instant recognition without putting in the time, right? And without paying the price. And
Right.
anybody can post a picture of whatever, right?
And
But
you can be recognized for that. Wow, you're really putting a lot of work and effort into that. And your
yeah,
recognition can be as you're really putting a lot into your dream.
yeah. Let me ask
Okay.
you something. You think that we've gotten the whole concept of success all messed up? What's your, because a lot of people think that success is the shiny things, right? The big things. I mean, and so what's your definition of success, and how do you view that?
For over 40 years, I've said that success is the progressive realization of your personal and professional worthwhile goals.
Yeah,
You
that's
measure
key.
yourself against you. We talked about writing down your goals. We talked about doing the doing part. and enjoying those, celebrate your little successes as you go. But it's about progressive realization. When I graduated from Rochester, I got in my car, I drove to Miami because I also believe plan a life, don't plan a vacation. Okay.
Mm,
And we
mm,
talk about life work balance, and we all wait for these vacations. And I don't know why. It's okay to enjoy your life, plan your life, pursue your family, pursue your personal enjoyments, whether it's fishing or gymnastics or sports or hobbies, or my new one now is shell collecting, and then pursue your dreams in your professional career. And success is that progressive realization, and that's perpetual. And in one of my slides I used to say, and you're never too old to have a new dream and an imagination. So
yeah.
what's interesting is, like, when I became a senior vice president, I feel like I reached a shiny object, new destination. And then that's good for about a week, and you realize, oh shoot,
Indeed.
I'm not as, I need the next satisfaction, the next, oh, it's a
Yeah.
chief marketing offer. Now I'm retired, so to speak. Okay. And so it's like, oh my gosh, even at my age, uh, I have to go through shampoo, rinse, repeat of the same
Yeah.
exercises. As what do the next 5 years now of my life look like? I think a good exercise to do for persons is, every few years, if not annually, is to look at where do you want to be in those 5 years. And
Yeah.
success is progressive realization and knowing that you're doing it. It is
Yeah.
not It's not a home run. You got to do this in singles and
Yeah,
doubles.
singles and doubles. Apps. You're. I was just thinking that same thing, and and I've done the same thing. And I started out as a training and development coordinator, and then I thought, okay, what do I need to do to get to the next step? And I'm always always start with the end in mind. Once
Right.
I took that first leap, and I said, okay, what's the highest position in my field? And that's chief learning officer, right? But you're absolutely right. And at every junction of my career, it was actually I enjoyed it. It was fun. Okay, I made it, but now what, right?
Yeah,
And so making it all the way
it's
to a
true. We
chief
talked
learning
about
officer.
your book. We talked about your book. You reached an achievement. You couldn't wait to write your first book. And I know I always said I'm going to write a book, but I have to tell you, overcoming inertia.
Yeah,
By the way, overcoming inertia is just all of our number one roadblocks. And
yeah,
of course, the way to do it is everything we talked about: put
and
in a goal,
fear,
put in a dream.
and
Yeah, but
fear.
now you have to
Yeah,
rewrite your book because
yeah,
you reached the destination, and now everything has evolved and changed, and you owe it to the world
yeah,
to
yeah,
now serve them
yeah,
with get out of the dumpster,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
getting
yeah.
out of the dumpster's gotten a little bit bigger and a
It's
little bit more
gotten
challenging now, and the lids are a little heavier, and so it's going to require a little bit more combustion.
to leap out of there. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I'm gonna use some of this recording for my book. If you don't mind, I'm gonna quote you a lot on my next
Okay.
book. Uh, Listen, one of the things that I've always appreciated about you is that you're a creative thinker. I mean, you think. There's people that, oh, you got to think outside the box. Whatever that means, right? But you are a creative thinker, and one of the expressions that you use is imagination, right? Is that you have to have imagination. How do you get to that point where you have that type of imagination? What do you do to get in a creative? I mean, you were in marketing and sales. You have to be super creative. What are some of the things that Rob did, or Rob, can give us so we can have a brighter imagination to do what we need to do?
Yeah, that's a good question. I have to think of some of that. Everything starts with a dream, so you have to visualize. I think you and I talked
Yeah,
about visualizing. Where do you see yourself, or where do you see what's the end in mind,
yeah.
right? What's the end in mind? We had to do an exercise back in the day. You take a 3x5 whiteboard out, white poster board, and a fresh, nice box of Crayola crayons. Okay, the ones that smell real good. They're not
Oh
you,
yeah. Oh,
you
I
know,
remember.
and you draw out where you see yourself in 5 years.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting. I've done this exercise in my entrepreneurial workshop center, and it's interesting that the first reaction from everyone is they have to think about it.
Hmm.
Like, what do you mean draw out where we see ourselves in 5 years? Yeah, well, but what should I put that on the page? Well, it could be a horse, it could be a boat, it could be light, it could be a lot of things. It could be the moon, the Mars. I don't know. Where do you see
Yeah.
yourself in 5 years? Draw it.
Yeah.
And you realize how our mind has become a lot of times through our upbringing. Our parents always used to tell us, stop dreaming, kid. Hey, I want to be an
Hmm.
artist. Stop dreaming and get a real job. As kids, we're born to dream. And then unfortunately, we get that clamped down. So we have to do some exercises there.
Yeah.
The other one is I learned from a great Japanese inventor over 35 years ago that do this exercise. Every article you read, everything you read, most of what you read back then, it was a newspaper. All the articles are about problems.
Hmm.
Think of an idea to solve the problem that you're reading about.
Yeah. Hmm.
Start retraining your mind that everything you start looking at, start thinking about what we call now at least a hypothesis on what could solve that problem. It was how to start an idea for a new business or service every waking day of your life. And you read this and you write it down and you put it in a file folder. And often what you'll find as each day goes by, you start to see some similarities where this problem exists continuously or in other industries or across a category. And you keep on writing this down every day and you keep on cross-referencing. All of a sudden, one or two or three of those file folders is getting bigger than the other ones.
Yeah.
Okay. And you've got a new idea for a business. But what it does is it trains your mind not just to be reading about a problem, but it's to be reframing yourself with a growth mindset as to a hypothesis as to, wow, I bet you if they had this, I bet you if they had that, or perhaps if they had, what's with these people? How can they not see that they need someone to deliver that or to do this? Don't worry. Don't get caught up in the tactics that the technology doesn't exist or there's too much labor. My wife asked me, why is it you give away all your ideas? I said, well, for one is nobody's got the energy to go do that. And that's what you and I have been talking about for an hour now, right?
That's it.
So those are some exercises. Know that our creator didn't give us the ability to dream about what we want without having given us the ability to go after it. And of course, there's some formal processes that they use in innovation and ideation for divergence to convergence and all these kinds of things. But, I trained myself not to memorize everything I could look up and to use my gray matter for everything going forward. So
that's excellent. I think you've hit on so many good points there. I think that the key is to continuously put yourself in that situation where you're thinking about solutions.
Yes, right? It's a growth mindset. It's a growth mindset.
Yeah, it's contributing, right? And it's a lot of people think, and by the way, I mean, this, you guys didn't invent the cell phone, right? Newsflash, right? But what you did is you looked at a problem in a particular market, and you adopted and made that better to reach that much. So you don't have to become an inventor, right? I mean, I love the movie.
You don't have to be an inventor. You also don't have to have your own purpose. You can follow someone else's. You can go, wow, that person or wow, I really believe in what Reggie's doing. I love his purpose. I want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
I don't have to be the one to say, I want to be helping persons learn, develop, grow, realize their professional and personal advancements and realize all their dreams. I could be a part of that and help Reggie accomplish that. And I'm going to ask him how I can help. And he might say, well, unfortunately, I can't pay a whole lot of anything. But if I ever get to that chance, I'll work something out. And what else have you got to lose? Because, hey, Reggie, maybe I'll meet some other ways where maybe I do get something of which you do understand. But that's what it's all about. And then what we had to do at TracFone, and this is where we ended up in the last 5 years, big time. We think, I learned in college, do not do marketing based on your own opinion. So we thought we had it figured out, right? Because we're so smart, right? This is apparently obvious, right? And we have to flip the mindsets into saying we have a hypothesis. We have to go test it with the customer. Yeah. We have to all become customer centric. When I'm coaching in the entrepreneurial school up at RIT, it's just think about this. If you go ask a customer about your thought, your idea, you have an engineer in front of you, you have a copywriter in front of you, you have a marketer in front of you, you have a product designer. You might spend a year or two trying to figure that all out, or 3 years and $600 million, when all we had to do was go ask the customer, how would you like the phone? How would you like the air? Here we have a...
What a concept.
What a concept. And so that's all we have to go do today. There's a thing out there called rapid prototyping. I mean, look at the Febreze story, Febreze. And if you notice today, watch all of the laundry detergent commercials. The majority of them now talk about smell, not clean.
Yeah.
Because what they learned from the customer, Febreze was almost out of business. And Febreze, before it went out of business, finally said, let's go ask the customer. Oh, we should have done that before we spent $1 billion, but now let's go ask the customer. And what they found out was it wasn't about clean, it was about smell. And if you market that by stuff's going to smell better, Now I'm all in. It's $1 billion business. If I tell you I'm just going to clean. So take note when you're watching these laundry commercials, they're all going to be talking about smell. But
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
paradigm was I was trying to sell you something that cleans, right? And there's ways to rapid prototype. Get out in the market, go to the malls, go to flea markets, go to conventions, just go and relish the
Yeah.
moments,
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you
Yeah.
feel some discomfort, you yearn for those moments. Those are the moments you want. Those are the learning moments. I hate to say it, learning
Yeah.
moments come with discomfort. And when you feel some pain, you can say, yay, I must be learning something because I'm in pain.
It's funny because for many years, Rob, I was very comfortable in my career, right? I mean, I was growing and getting recruited and being paid more, and it was so comfortable and almost easy, right? I mean, I still had to
Yeah,
pay the price. Um, and one of the reasons why I didn't do what I'm doing now earlier is because I was avoiding the discomfort and
right.
the fear, right? And you're absolutely 100% correct.
Yep.
Feeling that right now to me it's like fuel, right? It's
Yeah.
like it's like okay, there's something to this. I learn every single day. I know what's working and not working. And so one of the points that I wanted to make with regards to going to the customer, I just put something on LinkedIn, Steve Jobs. And Steve Jobs was being grilled by a group of engineers. And one of the engineers, asked him, because he was not, Steve Jobs was not an engineer. And so the engineers looked down at Steve Jobs and said, "Well, what have you done? Right? Why should we listen to you?" And he said, I just exactly what you just said. He said, the reason why I've learned and we are on our way to success is because we didn't go and ask the engineers, "Hey, let's come up with some cool technology that we can go and sell." We
Yep.
went to the customer, asked them what they needed, and then we came back and built it for them,
Yeah.
right? And so that is, I think, a difference, right? I mean, when I started, I'm not an engineer by trade. I'm an educator. But
Right.
what I noticed in a lot of the technologies that were being used to deploy learning, they were designed by engineers, so people didn't like them, right?
Right.
They were
Yeah.
difficult. So it's using,
No, it's so true. You just
right?
need to
It's
be the conduit. You just need to see that purpose and have that vision. And you don't need to be an expert at any one thing. You just need to be an expert at, per se, doing the doing part.
yeah,
Okay. And
yeah, yeah,
listening to the customer, listening to the needs of if you're targeting corporations, and how you can serve what in today's world is so imperative, which is learning and development. It
yeah,
always has been, but it starts and ends with learning and development. And they also say if you had a choice between a great product idea or great people, choose the great people
yeah,
because they'll get you the good idea.
yeah,
And great people come from learning, they come from development. They also were persons that saw themselves as a corporation
yeah,
that needed to have a strategy, needed to have goals, needed to know what things they were going to do to realize those goals. They knew that it wasn't always going to be easy, but overcoming them is what makes life fulfilling.
yeah,
So I can't begin to tell you. I meet with some other retired persons that look back now going, oh my gosh, I should have done a lot so differently.
mm,
I wasn't thinking
yeah,
about success and goals. And Rob, gosh, I'm quite envious of you, but I wish I had done some things. And so what's nice to see them is they'll call me now and saying it's not too late. They're at least
yeah,
going to for the last 15 years of their life where it's purposeful. But those are it's all about you, Inc.
yeah,
and
yeah,
making yourself marketable. Get your braggables. Uh, I did so many little doings that I kind of get a little chagrined smile when people will say to me, I can't believe you know how to do tableside cooking and flambés. And I can't believe you're a gourmet chef. And I can't believe you dance. And I can't believe you public speak. And how did this all happen? I go, well, I took public speaking. I took cooking
yeah,
courses. I
yeah,
wanted to have some braggables. I was a skinny twerp that had nothing. I couldn't get a date. I couldn't play sports. I couldn't get up in front of a classroom and speak. I mean, I was like the ultimate skinny I don't want to use other adjectives. And so I had to put forth a plan in motion to how to fix stuff at the house. I do all my own repairs. And, even when I fish, people are like, wait, let me get this straight, Rob. You actually catch the fish? You're telling me you fillet it also? Yeah. Who
Uh-huh.
cooks it? I cook it. Wait a minute. You are able to catch it, clean it, and cook it? Yes. How did you come about all this? I learned how to fillet from someone. I learned how to boat from someone, and I learned how to cook. I'm like, oh my God, I can't
And you
believe
can
it.
set the table.
Look at cooking. It's the one thing we all love to do is eat. It's the one thing we do 5 times a day, but most of us don't know how to put food in our own mouths. So
Yeah,
for
yeah.
goodness sake, get on with it already.
Hey, for those of you who are just listening to my conversation, my private conversation here with Rob, I told you that you were going to enjoy Rob and all the knowledge and experiences. Thank you so much, Rob. I don't want to keep you away from. I know that you're heading to the Keys and you're gonna be do some fishing. I'm envious. I wish I could join you there. But thank you so much for taking
The pleasure.
time of your busy schedule and all you do. I want to let you know I've told you this before, but I appreciate you and look up to you, and I think that people are going to be or benefit they're going to benefit a lot from listening to our conversation today. So
Good. Well, thank you
let
very much, and look forward to some exciting little announcements coming up here in a few months
yeah, yeah, yeah.
from my
There,
side of the world. So
absolutely. So we'll have you back. We'll
great. I
definitely have you
appreciate
back.
it. Sounds good. It'll be real exciting.
Thank you so much, Rob.
Thanks again, Dr. Reggie paid in. Get
And by the
after it.
way, I didn't pay Rob for any of the all the nice things that Rob have said about me and my product. I didn't
No,
pay him.
you
So
weren't it. I'm just recognizing what you did as an outcome. We call that outcome-based marketing, right? Things
yeah,
have to have outcomes. So
yeah,
thank you
yeah,
again very
yeah.
much.
Thank you so much. And for those of you, I'll see you next time. Keep liking, subscribing, sharing. Until next time, this is Reggie Padine. Take care. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.